Yesterday we touched on some extremely critical issues. We started talking about Iraq, we started talking about Syria, obviously talking about the Middle East, and that's obvious of concern to us because of what's going on around the world, right? When you look, for example, at a map of the Ottoman Empire, what do you see? You see a country we still have soldiers in, just finished going to war with, Iraq. You see a country that we are afraid is building a nuclear bomb and is going to use it, Iran. You see a country that we are at war with right now, Afghanistan right here. You see what many people consider to be the heart of the problem, source of terrorism, and that is the Israeli-Palestinian problem. All right? And all of this is either right now in 1914 directly part of the Ottoman Empire, partially part of the empire, or just recently left the empire. The way World War I ends will directly cause all the problems we have in the Middle East today, including September 11th and everything else. Okay? And so if you understand this, you have a beginning of understanding everything else. So obviously we got to look at how World War I was fought. Focus. This is etched in the brains of Arabs. Every Arab school child is going to learn this. Okay, because you look at what is happening here. During World War I, notice the dates, 1915 and 1916, the heart of the fighting in the Western Front. The British are promising, look at the British words themselves, to recognize and uphold the independence of the Arabs in all regions. They're saying this to the Sharif of Mecca himself. England will uphold the independence of the Arabs. The independence of the Arabs. We all know how it's going to end. And look what they're saying. And it's not just what they're saying, and by they say this more than once to more than one person, it's also what they're doing with people like Lawrence of Arabia, where they're sending their own citizens, British subjects, going to the Middle East, telling the Arabs, we support you. Fight for your freedom, and you will get your freedom, and we'll support that. This is what they're telling them. Arabs are dying for this. Literally. They support them, they go to war with them, they lose their lives, expecting to be given their independence when it's all over. At the exact same time that this is happening, again, notice the dates. The exact same time that the British are promising the Arabs their freedom, they are talking with the French. The Sykes-Picot Agreement is between England and France. They are promising the French that they will take the very same people that they are promising their freedom and make them their own. This dark blue area will be the French direct control. The light blue area, French indirect control. The dark red area, British direct control. Notice Baghdad is in there. And the pink, indirect British control. So they're lying through their teeth. They're telling the Arabs, you will have your freedom, we will grant it to you. It's not that the British go back on their word, they certainly do that. It's while they're giving their word, they're turning around and promising the exact opposite to their buddies, the Frenchmen. And do you think the Arabs know this? Hell yeah, they find it out later on. Okay? Is there any wonder why they're angry? Now some of you, as we're going over this, will say, yeah, I can see why they're angry at the British. But what did the United States do? You're going to have to trust me on this, that you will learn this over the next month. Why is it that it seems like the British and the United States are the bad guys? Maybe even the United States more so. Again, trust me on that. Now, I'm going to go to this, I need to explain the Balfour Declaration. It's huge. But before I do that, let's review our history really quickly. A lot of you are familiar with the Bible. Okay, you know in the Bible that it talks about a kingdom of Israel, of King Solomon and King Saul and King David, and all those stories in the Bible that Christians, Jews, and Muslims all believe in. I can honestly tell you we have no proof of it. But I can tell you for a fact that the kingdom of Israel definitely, absolutely, positively existed. That it was right here. and that the Romans conquered it in 44 BC. I have been to Rome. I've seen the arch where they show it. So it definitely happened. The kingdom of Israel existed. It was conquered by Rome. Was there a King David and a King Saul? Well, there's a good chance there was. It doesn't really matter whether there was or not. What matters is that Jews, Arabs, and Muslims all believe there was. So what happens after Israel gets conquered and destroyed? Well, the Roman Empire exists for several, 500-600 years. Then one group conquers, another group conquers, and then eventually it comes under control of the Ottomans. But by 1900, we know the Ottomans are the sick man of Europe. What's going to happen to that land? At this point in time, by the 1880s, Jews around Europe, pretty much around the world, are looking at this saying, hey man, maybe we can get Israel back. It's been 2,000 years, it's about darn time. In addition, remember what's going on in recent Jewish history in Europe. We know that in Russia, we've got the pogroms. We know that Catherine the Great put them in this Pale of Settlement. We know about the Dreyfus case in France. Being a Jew in Europe is not exactly a party. And so, just the idea that maybe they could get their country back, the one they lost 2,000 years ago, and the fact that there's other people living there now, well, we'll worry about that later, really appeals to the Jews. So you get this idea known as Zionism. What is a Zionist? Okay, first of all, a Zionist, it's got to be a Jew. Okay, you can't be a Zionist and not be a Jew. The reason is, Zionists want two things in 1917. A Zionist is a Jewish person who wants the state of Israel to exist, wants to create the state of Israel, and number two, wants to move there. There's still Zionists today, obviously, but since Israel's already created, they want one thing, to move to Israel. Okay? So that's what a Zionist is. So these Zionist organizations start popping up, and England needs to win World War I. Well, there's an awful lot of Jews living in England. They're a minority, but they're a powerful minority. Be a great way to get their support, both militarily and financially. If we promised the Jews that when this is all over, they'll get their own land. I mean, we'll promise the Arabs all this stuff. Why not promise the Jews this stuff? And so they do. The Foreign Secretary of England, the British Foreign Secretary, Arthur Balfour, writes the Balfour Declaration. Infamous declaration written in 1917, which in essence promises a national home for the Jewish people in the land of Palestine. That's where Israel is today in 2010. Okay? Of course, if you are a Zionist, you're not going to wait for it to happen. Man, I'm going there now, because I want to be there right in Israel when it becomes a country. I'll be one of the founders of the Jewish state. So Jews immediately, not all of them certainly, but some of them, start moving to the Ottoman Empire, to Palestine, to the area that the British are saying someday will become Israel. And the Palestinians are like, WTF? This is ours. We've been living here for hundreds, maybe thousands of years. Yeah, maybe it was yours 2,000 years ago, but you Europeans can't just take our land and promise it to somebody who doesn't live there. Now, there were some Jews living in Palestine. There had always been Jews living in Palestine, but nothing like the number of Jews who start moving there. In 1917, as soon as the Balfour Declaration gets declared, Jews start moving to Palestine, and Palestinians and Jews start killing each other. They have been doing it ever since. To this very day, Jews and Palestinians are not getting along. The state of Israel has built a wall like the Berlin Wall to keep Palestinians out, and there is constant strife, constant terrorism, constant killing by both sides against each other. And many people would argue that this is the numero uno reason why we have terrorism in the world, is because of this problem in the Middle East. So if you put it all together, I'm going to skip ahead for just a second. Come on. And we look at how this was all done. You have three empires in the world. who were on the losing side in World War I.